David, what would be one piece of advice you could give someone who is buying a property today?
As far as estate planning goes?
Yes.
To have a plan in place, whether it be life insurance to help a spouse, if something happens to you, be able to pay the mortgage and pay the household expenses so you don't lose the property. To have a plan on who would get the property if something does happen to both of you. If you have kids, are you going to direct that the kids can stay in the house or that it can be sold? So there's many things you have to worry about when you buy a home. But having an estate plan in place, I think, is very important once you start owning property.
What would you say, like on average, does it go, the cost expense, I'm just curious, is it going based on the value of the property? Is it going based on what the attorney charges by the hour?
It's based on what you're preparing. It's not so much the value of the estate. Okay, it's how is it a simple will, or are we having all these creative trusts put into the will to protect maybe somebody who is inheriting, who is disabled, and you want to protect that asset? Am I typing up 4 or 5 pages talking about artwork and what goes where? So we really, it's an analysis. When somebody comes in, we have to get a feel for what the estate is and what's involved in the estate. What is it what are their goals? What are they looking for us to draft for them? So if it's something simple, obviously the fees are less. If we're going to have a revocable trust, an irrevocable trust, deed transfers, a will, healthcare proxies, powers of attorney, that's a lot more legal work. So, we charge accordingly. Same thing when somebody goes through probate. If someone comes in and says, my parents both passed away and it's just myself and my brother and we get along and there's no other family and we're really just trying to sell the house and that's the only asset, then it's going to be less than a situation where you have 20 people listed in the will. We have to notify, we have to locate those people who are all around the world in different places, get waivers, get consents, so that way you can probate the will. Is there going to be a will contest? Is everybody signing a waiver, or do we have to serve them with what's called citations, which is a right for somebody to go to court and contest somebody being appointed? So if you're stepping into a situation where there is a will contest or not everyone is on board, or the estate itself, there's 20 people listed in the will that you then have to find and notify, then it's going to cost more than if it was just, a brother and sister. So.
Right. Do you usually charge up front for this work, or you charge at the time when the property is sold?
It depends on the situation. There are times that people do not have the money.
Right.
You had mentioned that earlier. What happens if and I actually didn't answer that question. An executor has a house. Let's say mom and dad pass away. Whoever passes away, there's 1 or 2 kids. There's a house. Whoever lays out money to maintain that house can get reimbursed out of the estate when it's settled. I've had some situations where there really just aren't the finances to pay a legal fee up front. So we'll ask them to pay the court's filing fee, which is all based on the estate. Mm-hmm. But then they've already agreed that, yes, once you get one of us appointed or myself appointed, we will then use you to help sell the house and we'll pay you at that time. Mm-hmm. So there are times I have worked with people when I know that they don't have the assets and they'll pay me when they sell.
So you're flexible.
I'm flexible. There are times, though, that when somebody's coming in and it's going to be a contest and a lot of drama, and you have to take money up front because we're going to be going into court and making court appearances right away. And they're not going to necessarily be selling something like a house or an asset. They're just looking to get appointed or transfer a business or be able to run a business. So it's there's really no set fees. We have sort of a fee schedule we use based on the situation, but you have to assess the situation before I quote the fee.